phytochemical research and health is booming in the world today. And there's a lot of argument about this issue. But I thought it would be perhaps a good idea if we went through this little exercise together. What is a phytochemical? Phyto is plant, chemical is a chemical, so phytochemical are chemicals in plants. That's basically what it means. And in plants, besides the nutrients like the carbohydrates, the fats, and the proteins, you have a lot of these phytochemicals. And some of these phytochemicals are anti-carcinogenic. They fight cancer, and they prevent diseases. So phytoestrogen, for example, is a very important phytochemical. And many plant foods contain phytoestrogens. Now, don't get confused. A phytoestrogen is not the same as a normal estrogenic hormone in the female. Women produce estrogen, the female hormone, and men that consume phytoestrogen won't suddenly become effeminate. Definitely not. These chemicals are similar to estrogens, but they're not the same. Now, a woman, for example, in menopause will have all kinds of symptoms that are debilitating. And so she will go to the doctor, and the doctor will prescribe hormone replacement therapy. Isn't that right? And he will prescribe estrogens to replace the natural estrogens that have been taken out of the system. What happens then is that you are supplying a synthetic or extracted estrogen to take the place of what you have lost, and it has been found that that estrogen is carcinogenic. And so your risk of breast cancer is greatly increased when you take those type of estrogens. Now, plants contain natural estrogens, which are not like mammalian estrogens, but they compete for the binding site, and strangely enough, these are anti-carcinogenic. And so women and men need these phytoestrogens in their diets. Health benefits of diets rich in phytoestrogens would include, for example, prevention of breast cancer. Gentlemen, in case you thought that that only applied to women, prostate cancer and other cancers are prevented by phytoestrogens. Heart disease and stroke, osteoporosis, menopausal symptoms, brain diseases linked to aging, Alzheimer's, and all of these can be retarded greatly by phytoestrogens. Alcoholism, if you were an alcoholic and you have to overcome the negative effects, then phytoestrogens can help. And inflammatory diseases such as rheumatoid arthritis, all of these are benefited by diets rich in phytoestrogens. So you really want to get those into your diet. They are what we call nature's designer estrogens. Imbalances in estrogen are strongly linked to many major Western diseases, including heart disease, cancer, prostate, and breast cancer. And excess estrogen, that's normal estrogen that you would get in hormone replacement therapy, for example, can promote the growth of cancers. And you want to prevent that. So what can women do, for example, if they want to have a normal, relatively normal, healthy lifestyle when they get into their menopausal years without taking all these medications that can be so problematic? So what are phytoestrogens? Here's a little definition. Phytoestrogens are natural plant molecules similar in shape and size to human body estrogen, but not identical. And this slight difference means they don't have all the same effects of estrogen, and luckily, since some of the effects of estrogen can be nasty. So what do? They help to control dementia. That's people who do not remember things and develop age, loss of memory, and Alzheimer's disease, cognition, alcoholism, immune system, and then also the symptoms of menopause, hot flushes, menopausal symptoms, endometriosis, osteoporosis. All of those can be limited by phytoestrogens. Cancers, prostate, colon, breast, leukemia, all general cancers, skin cancer, inflammatory diseases, kidney diseases, cardiovascular improvements. So you can see that this is very, very widespread. Lately, because the name is phytoestrogen, there have been some articles which would suggest that plants rich in phytoestrogen can be a problem and cause disease, like, for example, the soybean. Of course, none of this is true, and reputable scientists over the world have recognized that there is some skullduggery there trying to undercut natural foods for the sake of some other industries. So don't believe everything that you read. If you want to know exactly what it is that has been isolated as the key component in some foods, for example, Brussels sprouts, has a compound which is known as sinigrin, and broccoli, sulforaphane, and also diethiotones, etc. So there are all the citrus fruit contains limolein, and so we have certain foods, phytic acid in grains, for example. These are some of the compounds that occur in these products. And they can work at different levels. They can either prevent carcinogens from actually doing their thing, or once they've actually initiated the cancer process, they can prevent it by preventing tumor promotion through oxidative damage or prostaglandins or steroids or any one of those. Here's a little list for you. Garlic, for example, is rich in sulfides, monoterpenes, triterpenes, phenolic acids. The herb teas in general are rich in flavonoids, glucerates, coumarins, phenolic acids. Soybeans can see a very good spread. Grains have a very good spread. Cruciferous vegetables, that's all your cabbage family. Cabbage and broccoli and Brussels sprouts and all of those are one of your best anti-cancer foods. In fact, if it wasn't for the cabbage, the Germans wouldn't exist anymore. And your umbelliferous vegetables, that's your carrots and your celery and your parsley, and all of those are also very, very rich in these foods. So yes, garlic is, for example, number one on the list of it in terms of power. But if you have a date, for example, you could go for the cruciferous and you'd find everything there in the cabbage family that you will find in the garlic. Every single one of those components. Perhaps not so much, but at least you don't blow your partner away. And here's some more of them. Citrus is quite good. Solanaceous, that's your potato and your tomato and all of those. By the way, gentlemen, the tomato is very good because it contains compounds which are anti-prostate cancer. So start including lots of tomatoes in your life. And curcubidaceae, I like these names. That's the pumpkin family. Anything from squashes through whatever, they're pretty good. Licorice, you can make teas from licorice. And flaxseed, we'll come to that in a moment. So this is your anti-cancer diet. Have a look at it. There it is. Anything that's a legume. Particularly try and include soy, which is one of the richest. The African diet typically consists of grains and legumes. That's it. And some greens. And they had none of the Western lifestyle diseases until they became urbanized. So here are your grains and your legumes in a typical African market, none of those diseases. Today, one of the worst cases of sudden increase in disease in the world is found in urbanized Africa. Nuts and seeds, sprouts, these are anti-cancer foods. There's your anti-cancer garlic. This is potent anti-cancer food. Anything that you see on that list and that list and that list, all of it is anti-cancer food. Can you see none of it looks like a tablet? That means you'll actually have to start doing things with food rather than substituting with a tablet. And learn to start living life with these foods. So the high anti-cancer foods are garlic, cabbage, licorice, soybeans, ginger, and carrots, celery, and parsnips. The medium ones are onions, herb teas, turmeric, citrus, whole wheat, flax, brown rice, tomatoes, eggplants, peppers, and all of the rest of the cabbage families besides cabbage itself. And then you can add there some of your grains and your condiments. So here's a summary of findings. Phytoestrogens and breast cancer. There's a wealth of evidence that phytoestrogens are protective against breast cancer. And here's a little graph for you in terms of prostate cancer, and breast cancer is very similar. This is the incidence of prostate cancer in China, South Korea, and Japan, as opposed to the UK, Australia, and the USA. It's pretty bad, eh? So, wow. Would one like to get prostate cancer? It's not a very nice cancer to have. So what's the difference? Why does China have such a low incidence, South Korea and Japan, and the Western countries look like that? Bowel cancer. High intakes of soybeans and tofu give an 80% reduced risk of cancer of the rectum and the lower bowels. 80%. Phytoestrogens can reduce the number of crypts, those are the little places that become inflamed and eventually form little tumors. Phytoestrogens may be effective only in blocking the early rather than the late stages. So you want to start having a lifestyle as soon as possible. And kids must learn to like these things. This is an interesting study that was done on skin cancer. You know, today they're telling you the sun is getting worse and worse, time to wear wide-brimmed hats, don't they? In Australia it became a law that you had to wear a wide-brimmed hat. They've taken that law away again now, I hear. Now why is that? Because people are getting more and more cancer. Here's what happens. Phytoestrogens can protect against the harmful effects of UV from the sun. In a study performed by the US Army, it was found that rats exposed to lethal doses of X-rays all survived if they were fed phytoestrogens in their diet, whereas those eating regular food all died. So the phytoestrogen genistein blocks the growth of skin cancer cells called B16 melanoma cells in mice. So here is a substance in the food that prevents skin cancer. And you can get it from soy foods. Remember this one over here. We'll talk more about genistein. Genistein is a very important component. It is as good in many cases as hormone replacement therapy that you get from the doctor. Estrogens have a protective effect on the brain. Alzheimer's disease. There are two main types of Alzheimer's. Early onset, which strikes anywhere from the age of 30 to 70. I know someone who's just 40 years old, who's got Alzheimer's disease, and you have to pen him in. He's like a child. He'll get undressed and he'll start walking down the street naked. It's pretty bad. And he's only 40 years old, and he was a headmaster of a school. And appears to be genetic. It often runs in family. More commonly, Alzheimer occurs late in life. It's more sporadic. And it is about 1.5 times more common in women than in men. And it seems to be more common in people living in urban rather than rural areas. Why? It's a diet question. Now, why is it more common in women than in men? You see, women have high estrogen levels. And then when they get older, when they start going into menopause, estrogen levels drop. They crash. And then they get the menopause symptoms, and then they get hormone replacement therapy from the doctors, which are carcinogenic. And the whole idea is actually very detrimental. Now, because their hormone levels drop so low, the protection that the brain needs, estrogens, is removed, and they're more prone to Alzheimer's disease. Men also have estrogen. We have everything a woman has. We just don't have the high levels that a woman has. But the man's estrogen level doesn't drop throughout his lifetime. It stays relatively constant. So we don't have that time period when we get old, when estrogen levels suddenly drop. And that's why men have a protection against Alzheimer's disease. Cancer of the uterus, there's a 54% reduction if you have foods high in phytochemicals. Stomach cancer, regions in Japan that have high tofu intake, for example, have the lowest rates of stomach cancer. If they eat a lot of salted fish, for example, they have high incidence of cancer. If they eat a lot of tofu, they don't have the cancer. It also boosts antioxidants. For example, vitamin C and vitamin E. Phytoestrogens also work as antioxidants, and they prevent us from making the bad kind of cholesterol known as LDL cholesterol. So, very, very good. It also improves the flexibility of the blood vessels. In your blood vessels, there are muscles and all kinds of layers, and the blood vessel has to remain flexible. As you get older, it gets impregnated with fats and it gets less flexible. Well, if you have phytoestrogens in your diet, you can even get back to your normal responsiveness. So normally, as you get older, because the blood vessel gets less and less flexible, your blood pressure starts rising. If you have lots of phytoestrogens in your diet, your blood pressure can stay low. And that's very, very nice to have a low blood pressure. Low blood pressure that is detrimental is one when you get up, you're dizzy, you don't know what's going on. But a low blood pressure where you don't get dizzy means your blood vessels are still flexible. That's good. Phytoestrogens also help bone. Like estrogens, they make bone-dissolving osteoclasts less active. You have two types of cells in your bone working. The one is an osteoblast that builds calcium into the bone. The other one is an osteoclast that takes calcium out of the bone. So if you have phytoestrogens in your diet, the ones that break down the bone become less active, and so you don't lose as much calcium from the bone. Menopause, reduced hot flushes, dryness of the reproductive tract, cholesterol levels, bones, skin condition, brain function, all of these are helped by phytoestrogens. 70% drop in estrogen levels when a woman goes into menopause. And so they get hormone replacement therapy, as I said, which has many side effects. And I would like to do a little quiz with you now to see how well you fare in terms of your phytoestrogen diet. Now, I do this with my students at the university when I run through this course with them, and you'll be surprised at how they fare. I'll tell you afterwards. So if you have a piece of paper, has anybody got a piece of paper or pen or something? Just make a note and let's see how you fare. Make a little home test. All right, we have to do this test fairly. That means it's either all or nothing. Do you use soy milk in place of dairy milk each day or almost daily on cereals and in cooking? If the answer is yes, you get 5 points. If the answer is no, you get 0. Okay? And be honest. Do you eat soybeans or foods made from soybeans, such as tofu, soy burgers, soy hot dogs, anything made from soy, on average 3 or more times a week? If you do, you get 5 points. If you don't, you get 0. Okay? 3. Do you eat other legumes, such as chickpeas, lentils, red kidney beans, navy beans, or food prepared from these, such as hummus, dal, any one of these, on average 3 or more times a week? If you do, you get 2 points. If you don't, you get 0. Now, here's an interesting one. Do you eat linseeds? Or use linseed meal, that is ground linseeds, on your cereals, mixed into yogurt or bread, at least 3 times each week? If so, you get 5 points. If you don't, you get 0. Linseed is flaxseed. All right, I'll show you a slide of it just now. I'll tell you why you get 5 points for that. If you take a capsule, it's not quite the same, but it's better than a kick in the pants. But I wouldn't give you 5 points, no. Do you add sprouts, such as alfalfa or soy sprouts, to your salads or sandwiches once or more per week? Then give yourself 3 points. Then, do you on average eat 2 servings of fruit, fresh, daily, or pieces of apricot or whatever, even dried fruit? Do you regularly, daily eat fruit? If you do, you get 3 points. And then, do you, on average, eat at least 5 servings of vegetables of a variety of colors each day? Very few people get that far. Then you get 3 points. That's different vegetables. Then, if you use wholemeal grains, in other words, no refined flours, but if you use wholemeal, 3 or more servings each day, everything whole grain. So that could be whole grain, it could be rye, it could be brown rice or wholemeal pasta, any one of those. Do you use them regularly? 3 points. If you eat nuts and seeds, nut butters, even including peanut butter, at least 3 times a week, you get 2 points. Then, do you mostly choose fresh juices, such as tomato or vegetable juices, in preference to soft drinks? If you do, you get a magnanimous 1 point. This is just a phytoestrogen test, okay? Do you drink herbal teas most days? If you do, you get another magnificent 1 point. If you don't, you get 0. If you use only virgin olive oil in your cooking, in place of margarines and things, or sunflower seeds, or any one of them, you get 1 point. Do you eat at least 30 types of food per day? Now remember, this sounds impossible, but let's make this simple. If you read the list of ingredients on any can of anything, it's long, even if it means just a herb. Like if you add some celery, or you add some parsley, or you add this or that, all these little things, a little bit of garlic, a little bit of onion, potato, it's not too difficult to get there. If you do all of that, you only get 1 point in any case. So I'll be nice to you, give yourself that point. Now, let's add up the score. Let's add it up. And let's see where we get. All right, let's see what happens. Who in this audience gets between 26 and 35 points? All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 6 or 7. Who fall into the second category? 16 to 25 points. There are quite a few that go up there. That's pretty good protection. If you fall into those categories, you're pretty good. If you fall between 6 and 15, are there some here? Don't be shy. Yes. That's not so hot. Anybody between 0 and 6? Yeah. Guess what the average is for a typical secular university class like I have? I have about 450 students I had in my class. Guess what the average was for all of them? Under 3. So all fall into this category. Every single one in the world out there. That's pretty bad. Now, I'm talking here to a society that should be health conscious. And so we had some in there, we had some in there, and we had quite a lot in there, and we even had quite a few in there. Right? So there is a lot of room for improvement here. A lot of room for improvement.